Pontiac introduced the Bonneville in 1957 as what was essentially a fully loaded and fuel-injected Star Chief convertible, taking its name from the 1954 Dream Machine sports car concept, which was named for the Utah Raceway. Expensive at $5,800, when a Star Chief convertible started at $3,100, so only 630 were made. It was 214 inches long on a 124-inch wheelbase and 4,300 pounds. Its 5.7-liter 347 Strato Streak V8 was said to produce 315 horsepower. With a top speed of 125 miles an hour and a high 16-second quarter mile, it was not the best performing Pontiac of the year. The cars would be decontented for 1958, losing most of the standard features, including the fuel injection, which reduced starting price to $3,600, and a $100 cheaper coupe would also be offered. The wider, lower body looked bigger, but moved to the shorter 122-inch wheelbase of the Chieftain, and was only 212 inches long. The engine was up to a 6-liter 369, marketed as a 370, available in 255 horsepower, 285 horsepower, 300 horsepower tri-power, and 300 horsepower fuel-injected versions. And again, the tri-power, with its 3 two-barrel carburetors, outperformed the fuel-injected version. For 1959, the Bonneville would become the top trim level for all body styles, including sedans and the Safari wagon. It would also be the first year of the modern Pontiac split grille, wide track, and safety track limited slip. It returned to the longer wheelbase, except the wagon, and was 221 inches long and 4,100 to 4,400 pounds. The engine grew again to a 6.4-liter 389, with horsepower ranging from 260 to 345, but fuel injection was no longer offered. Styling would be somewhat subdued for 1960, but special 8-lug wheels with exposed aluminum drums for better cooling were offered. The split grille would return for the new design of 1961, wheelbase was down to 123, and length to 219, and weight 3,800 to 4,200 pounds. For 1962, Bonneville sales would climb to 100,000, helping Pontiac take third in overall sales. And walnut veneer trim was added to distinguish the interior from lesser Pontiacs. There would also be a new short wheelbase version of the car that would be sold as the Grand Prix. The bigger 6.9-liter 421 would be offered in 1963 with up to 370 horsepower, pushing the big car through the quarter mile in just over 14 seconds and to speeds over 145 miles an hour. But it would only see minor updates for 1964. 1965 would see an extensive restyle with more aggressive, curvier styling. Wheelbase was back up to 124 inches, and length was up to 223, except the wagon. Weight was 3,900 to 4,300 pounds, and prices started at $3,400. Not surprisingly, there was only minor updates for 1966, inside and out. The facelift for 1967 was very distinct, with a partial wraparound front bumper that only lasted for 1 year. Other upgrades included a dual-circuit master cylinder and optional disc brakes. Engines increased in size to a 6.6-liter 400 and 7-liter 428, with 325 to 376 horsepower. At this point being a high 14-second car, and top speed was still over 130. Another facelift the following year went with a full wraparound front bumper and removed the stacked headlights. The interior saw a reduction in chrome and the addition of an 8-track player. 1969 saw subtle reshaping, inside and out, that removed the side crease and added a body-colored strip down the center of the grille. And there would be yet another facelift for 1970, with the grille remaining part of the bumper, but was isolated from the headlights. The 428 was replaced by a 7-liter 455 with 360 to 370 horsepower, which was now standard, but the smaller 400 could still be ordered. The cars would be restyled for 1971, and the Bonneville would become the mid-range package, now between the Catalina and the new Grandville. Prices range from $4,200 to $4,700. Length was up about an inch, wheelbase 2 inches, and weight close to 300 pounds. The 455 was the only engine, with 280 to 325 gross horsepower, or 185 to 255 net. The 3-speed turbo Hydra-Matic would become standard, along with power steering and front disc brakes, with a minor facelift for 1972 and then again for 1973, gaining 5-mile-an-hour bumpers and available radial tuned suspension. At the same time, the wheelbase was reduced back to 124, but the car was actually a hair longer. A 6.6-liter 400 returned with 170 horsepower, and a 250 horsepower 455 remained optional. 1974 models once again got a facelift, while the 1975 models saw several changes, such as rectangular headlights, standard radial tires, and the hardtop coupe being replaced by a pillared coupe, now being 226 inches long on a 123-inch wheelbase. The Grandville was replaced by the Bonneville Brougham in 1976 as the top trim level for the big Pontiacs. But the big GM cars would be downsized for 1977, down to 214 inches long on a 116-inch wheelbase and 3,700 to 3,900 pounds. Offered in coupe, sedan, and wagon, engines included a 135 horsepower 4.9-liter 301, 170 horsepower 5.7-liter Oldsmobile 350, and an 185 horsepower 6.6-liter 400. Prices were $5,400 to $6,000. Then cars outside of California would switch to a Buick 350 for the 5.7-liter version, and California cars would get an Oldsmobile 403 in place of the 400, which would be dropped for 1979, but the 403 could still be had in the wagon. In addition to cosmetic updates for 1980, the engine lineup was changed. The 403 was dropped, a 4.3-liter 265 V8 with 120 horsepower was added, as well as a Buick 3.8-liter V6 with 115 horsepower. In 1981, added an Oldsmobile 5-liter 307 and 5.7-liter 350 diesel, but sales were declining. Then, unlike other big GM cars, the Bonneville would be downsized again for 1982, essentially becoming a better-equipped version of the previous year's mid-sized Le Mans, with a more formal facelift. Now starting at over $8,500, it was only offered in sedan and wagon, and down to 199 inches on a 108-inch wheelbase, and 3,300 to 3,800 pounds. Engines included the Buick V6 and 3.8 and 4.1-liter versions with 110 or 125 horsepower. Oldsmobile's 5.7-liter diesel V8 with 105 horsepower, and a 5-liter Chevy 305 V8 with 150 horsepower. And the following year, the old car would return as the Parisian, priced nearly $1,000 more. But in 1987, there would be a new front-wheel drive Bonneville as the top Pontiac, with a $14,000 starting price, once again in line with the Oldsmobile 88 and Buick LeSabre, and sales improved to back over 100,000 and stayed there. Only offered as a sedan, length was about the same, but wheelbase was up to 111 inches, and weight was 3,300 to 3,600 pounds. Available in base, LE, and SE trim, and powered by the 3.8-liter V6, which was up to 150 horsepower. The following year, packages changed to LE, SE, and SSE with an increase in features, such as an information center with premium audio and an available 165 horsepower version of the Buick V6. And 1991 revised the suspension, only for the car to be restyled for 1992. Packages became SE, SSE, and supercharged SSEI, and prices started under $19,000. The base version of the V6 was up to 170 horsepower, while the supercharged version had 205, making it a high 16-second car with a top speed over 130. An SLE options package was added in 1993, which was not only an appearance package, but added several features inside, and allowed the supercharged engine to be added to lesser models, which in 1994 was bumped to 225 horsepower, and in 1995, the base version was up to 205 horsepower. There would be a minor facelift in 1996, with the supercharged engine getting another power bump to 240. For 1997, the SSEI got a heavy-duty transmission, and there would be a 40th anniversary edition. But it was not distinct, with only minor trim changes, and was available on all trim levels, so fewer than 650 were sold. In 1998, non-supercharged models got a transmission upgrade, but there would be another restyle in 2000, with a 112-inch wheelbase, and length was up to 203 inches, and weight 3,600 to 3,700 pounds. Trim levels were SE, SLE, and SSEI, but standard features were increased, and base price was over $24,000. In 2004, the SSEI was replaced by the GXP, and the supercharged V6 was replaced by a 4.6-liter V8 with 275 horsepower, making it a high 14-second car capable of speeds nearing 150 miles an hour. But 2005 would be the last year of the Bonneville, being effectively replaced by the G8 in 2008, just a couple of years before Pontiac itself was discontinued. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.